Now that we know how to write standard form numbers in scientific notation and scientific notation into standard form, I'm going to show you how you can compare them. So for the first problem that we're working on, it says order the numbers from least to greatest. Another way to say least to greatest is ascending. Like if you were to ascend the staircase, you're going to go up the staircase. So from the lowest level up to the highest level, or the smallest number up to the greatest number. Now, to compare and order scientific notation, the first thing I want to do is check and make sure that the numbers are actually written in scientific notation, which means the decimal part needs to be less than 10 or greater than or equal to 1. So this one's okay, this one's okay, this one's okay, and this one's okay. I check to make sure that they're all in scientific notation because if they're not, that can make a difference in the trick that I'm going to show you. So scientific notation requires that decimal on the front to be less than 10 or greater than or equal to 1. It also needs to be multiplied by a power of 10, which in this case, all of them are being multiplied by a power of 10. To put them in order from smallest to largest, the trick is I'm actually going to look at the exponent because the exponent is telling me how many times I'm multiplying that number by 10. So multiplying a decimal that is less than 10 7 times versus multiplying a decimal that's less than 10 8 times means that the decimal is going to move one less time here than it is here, making this number 10 times greater than that number. So really I'm putting them in order based on their exponent. So 6 34/100 times 10 to the 7th would be my smallest. These two both have 8 as an exponent, which means they're both being multiplied by 10 8 times. Since this is a decimal of 3 6/10, which is smaller than 6 3/10, this one's going to go next. So 3 6/10 times 10 to the 8th, and then 6 3/10 times 10 to the 8th, and then last but not least, my 3 26/100 times 10 to the 9th. And that's how you can put them in order from least to greatest. These are the numbers that are all greater than, I guess they're decimal, whereas the ones underneath here, notice they all have exponents that are negative, which makes them not negative numbers, but really small numbers. So in this case, each one of my decimals are in fact in proper scientific notation, but if I want to put them from smallest to largest in this case, I'm going to look for the smallest number, which for negative purposes would be my negative 13. Negative 13 means it's going to multiply by 10 in the left direction, which makes for a very, very small number. So I'm going to use 5 5/100 times 10 to the negative 13 as my, negative 13 as my smallest number. Then would be 9 8/10 times 10 to the negative 12. If I have two numbers that are being multiplied by 10 to the negative 11, I go back to the strategy I used before. Look at their decimals. This is 1 23/100. This is 1 32/100. If you're not absolutely positive, put them in standard form. 1 23/100 would be moving the decimal to the left 11 times. So from the 1.2, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, versus 1 32/100 with a decimal that's moving the exact same number of times in the same direction. And if I were to compare these two, I've got the same number of zeros all in front of it. So which one's smaller? They both have a 1. This one has a 2. This one has a 3, which means my top number here, the 1 23/100 times 10 to the negative 11, would be smaller than 1 32/100 times 10 to the negative 11, which I know you can't see and I'm having a hard time writing, but you get the idea. So the big idea, make sure your numbers are in standard scientific notation first, and from there you can then use the exponents to put them in order. Think of a number line, an integer number line. Numbers that are farther to the left are less than numbers that are to the right, which means any of your negative exponents are always going to be smaller than your positive exponents. And you can actually order your numbers in order of the exponent, and if they happen to have the same exponent, look at the decimals and compare them.